This week on the Media Boss Podcast.
Stop thinking about your podcast or your content as a file that is going somewhere on the internet. Start thinking about this as a bigger experience.
Media Boss Podcast is brought to you by two of our new partners. One is Pantheon. I can't wait to tell you about them later. And brought to you by Convert and Flow. You're going to learn so much about them. But now it's time for the Media Boss Podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Media Boss Podcast. I am Dr. Barrett Matthews, and I'm glad you guys are here today. Once again, got a great show for you. Once again, got a great guest. I know you're tired of hearing me say that, but I can't help it if my guests are great. I can't help that. But guess what? I think you're great too. So I just want you to just sit back, relax, and you're going to find out some great things about what we have as far as the world of media. Now, I do want to tell you, if you guys are brand new, if you're wondering what is the Media Boss Podcast, if you're an author, if you're a speaker, if you're a coach, if you're out there looking for more clients and you want clients that are going to pay you, I'm telling you, you have to embrace media. People gather their information through one form of media or another. And if you only are focused on one area or not focused at all in media, you're going to be missing a whole lot of people out there that want to pay you, but just don't know you exist. So the Media Boss Podcast is to bring people in here to show you that media is your friend. Don't be afraid of it. So what I want you guys to do is make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Make sure you are sharing the podcast. Let everyone know that you are listening or watching the Media Boss Podcast. Now, I also like to start off every single episode with something I like to call the Media Minute. The Media Minute is just where I give you guys some information about something in the media that I think you all need to know, a tip, and some news even, just to help you as far as what you need to know in media. Now, the thing I want to talk about is for those of you who are out there who are doing video, whether and a lot of people like to use natural light sometimes when they're outside, whether they're shooting for social media or even shooting for documentary films, TV shows, whatever. And that's great. I love natural light. It's probably the best light out there to use. But I want to give you a little tip. It's better to use natural light when it gets either earlier in the morning or later in the day, because and it's like top of the hour, like noon, it's too bright. 2 o'clock, too bright. Wait till it starts going down a little bit. The light is much better for you when you're using your camera. So that is your Media Minute for today. Now, it's time for me to bring on my guest, and I am excited. First of all, I want to say that I got up this morning. I ran a mile. I thought I was doing something. And then I found out that this man was not just an Ironman triathlete, but a 3-time Ironman triathlete to make me feel like a slacker. But he's done other things to make me feel like a slacker. Yeah, he's just coming on here to really beat me down today. Now, he's helped a lot of creators to take a smarter approach to their podcast to get their full potential out. I mean, he's learned a lot and he wants to share what he's learned with people. And I think that's great. But he's produced a network of podcasters to get millions. I didn't say thousands. I said millions of downloads. And guess what, guys? He is here today on the Media Boss Podcast to share his style of media with you. And I want to bring to you none other than Mr. James Bishop. James, welcome to the Media Boss Podcast, my friend.
My man, thank you. And what an introduction.
Hey, I just want to say you're making me feel real little right now because you've done 3 Ironman triathletes. That's amazing, man.
Well, thank you very much. I don't really know how to explain why or what or the rest of it. It's just something that I discovered I could do and I enjoy.
Wow. Well, if I had a hat on, my hat would be off to you because
thank you.
That's amazing. And I tell people I love the intestinal fortitude of people that really focus on athletics like that, because it takes a lot in here and a lot in here. So
well, I will say it's been a busy year because really an Ironman triathlon, which I did 3 weeks ago in Barcelona in Spain, was the third one I did was only 3 weeks ago. It's like 6 months of training where you do 10 sessions a week. Mm-hmm. In the dark, I live in the UK, so in the dark, in the cold, in the wet. And that's the difficult bit. And then the actual race day, I mean, okay, you got to put it all together on one day, but really it's a celebration for the misery of the previous 30 weeks. So, you know.
I'm just going to say, James, I definitely want to go to Barcelona, but a triathlete was not on my mind.
I would say that's a good idea. It's a beautiful
That's a good
city.
idea.
There's many things you could do before swimming, cycling, and running.
Ooh, wow. Once again, my
Thank you.
respect. So let's talk about One Fine Play. Talk to me about that.
Okay, so One Fine Play started out as a production company, a podcast production company. I used to work in television. I was doing some work with disadvantaged young people, and I realized that I had the lucky opportunity as a basically privileged white male in the Western world. I was hearing conversations on a day-to-day basis that I knew there were people who didn't get access to them, but I took them for granted. That led me into podcasting because it, in its simplest form, was just capturing conversations. And because I'd come from television, I knew what we would refer to as talent, so celebrity. And we'll discover in a second that the client base that I've worked with doesn't translate across the pond, so you'll never have heard of these people. But started a production company making podcasts. And you see, as you alluded to in your introduction, that led us to making a network of shows all based around social purpose. So we don't know, I would not be a good man to speak to about making true crime or comedy or sport or fiction or children's podcasts, because I see all these different genres as specialisms. I mean, I could give it a shot, but I wouldn't be really good at it. But investigative journalism and conversations and interview style shows and
I love that.
All around conversations of value. So social purpose, that was like our niche. And we made a network of different shows that cumulatively get millions of downloads. But what we discovered was it's not really those successes that are interesting, but rather the things that we learned along the way that allowed us to make those shows and deliver those results. And so as we've been through the pandemic and times have changed and technology has evolved, I realized that there are loads of people who can produce your podcast. There's loads of ways that you can make a show. And really the value that I could add and the difference I could make, and the thing I was interested in was around the mechanics of growing a show, making a sustainable, commercially sustainable podcast, and kind of making a difference to an audience. So that's where I focus my energy now.
Wow. I mean, first of all, that is a wonderful and a niche that actually should be praised. And I like the way you have phrased that. I like the way you put it in perspective, because you're bringing about change with your work. And I love that. And it's something that a lot of people don't think about, to be honest with you, when they're doing a podcast. They're really not. They're thinking about themselves most of the time. Let's just be honest with it.
I think that's probably true to a certain extent. I just felt I could make a bigger impact by, we can only make a certain number of shows at any time. So I've always thought that by making podcast content or content in general, you could help people to impact audiences and educate others. But that's only finite within production. But I realized that if I could empower the creators, that I could do that.
Yeah, and I like how you said, I was reading your stuff and you're the conscious podcasters. I understand what that means now.
Yeah, sure. And I think I will be, I appreciate you highlighting the sort of giving back element of what I do. But to be honest, a lot of it also came from the fact that over the more recent period, I would say 19 out of 20 people that I speak to actually say to me, I need help with growth and with monetization, with marketing and with community, not with production. So we had a production company and they would come to us and they'd be like, yeah, well, I've already kind of doing this and doing that. And I've got my little system and I don't want to take away from these people. And they probably can't, being blunt, can't afford our production anyway. And what they really wanted help with was, how do I get more people listening to this show? And how do I maybe make it pay for itself? And as someone who's had to run a production company, my job as exec producer has always been make sure it delivers results, make sure it pays for itself, it makes money ideally. So that mechanic is the thing that I was always responsible for.
So when someone comes to you with those issues, what is it that how do you handle them?
the general mindset is just to say, rethink this like it was a brand or a business. Stop thinking about your podcast or your content as a file that is going somewhere on the internet. Start thinking about this as a bigger experience. So if you can start to do that, you can think about it as a brand or a business or an enterprise, and that the content you're making is just one of the probably main products in that thing that you're doing, then you'll become more successful.
I like that. So James, we were talking prior to starting this about you being a straight shooter. So when you come to people and tell them that, are they receptive, or are they receptive to what you say, or do you have to spin it a different way for them?
I mean, I'm conscious of my direct nature at this point. I'm nearly 40. I know what I'm like. So I guess, and I've done quite a lot of work around that. So I guess I call it out before it gets called out, and I'm aware of different styles of people and different ways that I need to deliver stuff. But if people often come to me because they want to know the truth, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna put my big boy pants on, and I'm gonna go see James, and it might hurt, but he's probably right, and it's probably what I need to hear. And so that's kind of how it seems to be. That's the reputation I hear that I have anyway.
Yeah, and look, I relate to you. You're my people.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I relate to you. I also worked in television, so I am one of those people that I hear people say sometimes that you're tough on people. You're rough. I'm like, look, I'm not trying to be your enemy. I mean, I didn't know you wanted me to lie to you. So
no, and for me, it's more like I want people to actually achieve their potential. Like that's the thing for me. Like there's you mentioned the Ironman triathlon thing, and there's a definite correlation between my mindset at work and my mindset in sport. Like, what can I achieve? What is possible? An Ironman involves a 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer bike ride, and a marathon back to back within 16 hours. That seems like a tall order, but if you do the right learning and you respect the right, you respect the race as a thing, and you respect, everything that it entails, and you put in the right work in the right way and you're disciplined, you will achieve your full potential. And I see exactly the same in podcasting. If you put in no effort and you just chat and you don't do any planning and you don't do any prep and you don't do any post-production and you don't consider your audience and you don't want to spend any money, then what are you really expecting to get from it?
Yeah, I agree. Now, question, when you mentioned earlier, and I've read it in your profile as well, about treating it like a brand. What does that mean to you?
Well, it means that it's not easy. It means, I will say this. I'm going to answer the question slightly differently.
Okay.
A thing that I've noticed recently that I want to start raising more awareness to, that I don't think I'll ever change, is we use the word podcast to describe a whole bunch of different things.
True.
So if we talk about television, let's talk about video for a second, because my true fascination is really in the creator economy as opposed to podcasting specifically. I come from television. I spent a year completely obsessed with YouTube. I probably know more on a day-to-day basis about YouTube than I do podcasting. Like, I could tell you the YouTube creators. I could tell you all, what's going on in the YouTube gossip world. I could tell you that way better than I know podcasts, right? Because that's what I personally happen to be interested in. And I have a fascination in human behavior, and I have a fascination in storytelling and human connection, all that kind of stuff. But let's look at video. On one end of the spectrum, we have Hollywood, and we have movies, and we have Netflix and HBO, and they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars making shows. And they call them movies, and they come out in the cinema, right? Then we have on demand, and we have television networks. Then we have YouTube of a range from Mr. Beast and his $4 million videos down to anybody just making a video on their phone and uploading it. Yeah. And then we have TikToks and social content and right? Instagram posts, right? And they all have different names, but they're all videos.
Exactly.
In podcasting, I know in podcasting, there are people making shows for the first time where they're literally just talking to each other on their phone. And now there are people making podcasts asynchronously. I've got a friend who runs an asynchronous podcasting product where one person records the questions and another answers the questions to make a podcast, but they never actually speak to each other.
Right.
Called a podcast. Then there's people making their first podcast where they're just chatting to each other and having a go, called a podcast. Then there are people who have, started a show, got some experience, getting hundreds or thousands of listens, making no money, called a podcast. Then there are people making money, doing well, doing a live talk, got a bit of merchandise, getting 10,000 downloads, called a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Then we move to the upper echelons. My production company, we charge maybe $6,000 to $10,000 an episode to make a show, called a podcast. Mm-hmm. Then I've got friends who make shows in LA or, around the world or even here in London and, making podcasts on behalf of publishers and production companies charging. I've heard of shows where there's a budget of $200,000 an episode.
Wow.
Called a podcast. So we have this wide spectrum of things all under the same name.
Yeah.
And I think that causes confusion to what's going on.
It can.
Because it's really hard to know what's what.
Yeah.
Now, at the top of that scale, they're not treating a podcast like some audio files they stick on the internet and hope that someone listens to on an app.
No.
Right? They're spending $200,000 an episode, of which $160,000 is marketing budget.
It better be.
And they're building a brand. And I just think you can apply those methodologies to a show of any size.
I see exactly what you're saying. And I agree with you. I see exactly what you're saying. And see, this is one of the reasons why I like having you as a guest, because you talk about the things that you've learned. And that's definitely something to learn from that, because you're right. And if someone is spending $200,000 an episode, that's the person to learn from.
I should flag in my 4 years podcasting, I've only ever heard of 3 shows that have more than $100,000 an episode budget.
Doesn't matter.
But look at the podcast Serial.
Uh-huh.
38 people worked on that show.
Mm.
That is not what most people think of when you say the word podcast.
No, that's a production. That is a serious production.
It's a brand. It's a business. Yeah. And for me, a thing I've been thinking about recently is the idea that podcasting is a journey for most people, right?
Mm-hmm.
As is any content type. And this is, as I say, I'm a purveyor of the content creator economy. So I look to other mediums. Mm-hmm. Let's look at books. Let's look at video. Let's look at OnlyFans. It doesn't really matter, right? They're productized. So that's how they work. YouTube is the easiest comparison. Once you understand that it's not just a bit of, if you wanted to make it, if you want to grow your podcast, there's a point at which it can't just be playing with the microphones.
Right.
And you have to take it more seriously. Right? So you need to then start to think of the products that you've got that you can use to grow your show. So there are 2 really obvious products. Number 1 is you become a product of your show, and what can you do around that? Number 2 is your audience. If you understand your audience, they can become a product. You can then sell that to a sponsor.
Right.
I have endless I have endless conversations with people who are like, I want to get myself a sponsor. I want to make money from my podcast. I'm cool. Who listens to your show? I don't know. Right. Or they tell me some nonsense that they've seen on their podcast hosting.
Yeah.
Cool story. You mean you don't have a clue? How many email addresses of the people have you got? Can you name any of them? Like, if you had 100 people listen to episode 1 and 100 people listen to episode 2, is that the same 100 people? Or is that 200 different people? I don't know. Do you know? Right? So if you don't know anything about your audience, then that's not a product. Once you understand who they are, it's a product. And then you can say to a sponsor, do you want to buy my product?
That's a great point. That's a great point.
If you then you can make products which are live events, merchandise, books, spin-off TV shows, it doesn't matter, right? You go from there. Yeah. And then you're building a brand.
Wow. Mind blown. Mind blown. So guys, we are sitting here, we're talking to James Bishop on the Media Boss podcast. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a quick break. because I have something I want to ask him after the break. So stay right where you are. We'll be right back with more of the Media Boss Podcast. How are you going to learn everything you need to know about starting a podcast? Well, at the Create Your Podcast Weekend, we put it all in 2 days and help you get your podcast going by next week. That's right, by next week. All you have to do is come to the Create Your Podcast Weekend and let us show you how to get your podcast up and running. We will show you how to attract listeners. We will show you how to get people to pay you for your products and services. What products and services? The products and services we show you how to create, all at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. All you have to do is go to createyourpodcastweekend.com and get registered today. And we have special bonuses. Some of you will even get us to give you the equipment to start your podcast. That's right. We're going to give some of you the podcasting equipment to get started. Go to createyourpodcastweekend.com. That's createyourpodcastweekend.com and get started on your podcast by next week. Starting a podcast can be a daunting task. There's a lot that goes into it, and you're probably wondering if you're able to handle it. Well, why don't you just take 2 days and let us teach you how to do it at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. That's right. We're going to show you all the aspects of how to start your podcast, how to keep your podcast going, how to attract listeners, and how to make money with your podcast. CreateYourPodcastWeekend.com. Get registered right now. Do you have a podcast? Would you like to have it heard by more and more people? Well, Pantheon is the way to go. Unlock the right mindset and tactics with our program. Create momentum with repurposed content. Get paid to build your business. And with Pantheon, we'll even show you how to have a team around you that gives you a community of encouragement. Check out Pantheon today.
You and me together, we could be anything.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Media Boss Podcast. I'm Dr. Barrett Matthews. I am thoroughly enjoying this conversation I'm having here with James Bishop. James, you hit on something a minute ago, and before we wrap up the show, I gotta ask you, tell me something I need to know about YouTube.
Something you need to know about YouTube. You can learn a lot from YouTube. That is, for me, the place you need to be. I mean, if you're interested in media, if you want to understand what's going on, what's current, you understand how things might evolve, that's the place to focus your attention. For me, that's the long-term bet. It's the safest place to be placing your counters.
Wow.
Building a YouTube channel. It's the easiest to monetize. It's literally, there are people sitting there waiting to consume your content. It's the second biggest search engine in the world. People are using it to search all the time.
True.
It's so much easier to start a YouTube channel than a podcast, let's say.
You heard it here, folks. You heard it here first from James Bishop. So, James, before we go, I want to give you a chance. Is there anything that we can support you in? Anything that you have coming up that we need to know about?
I have a whole bunch of things coming up that I'm really excited about. If you're interested in learning more about the creator economy vicariously through my journey of learning, then you can follow that most easily by visiting jamesbishop.io.
There you go. So everybody, make sure that you follow James. James, I want to thank you so much for being a guest here today. And I'm going to live my triathlete vicariously through you. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So guys, that was James Bishop. Make sure you follow him. And guys, if you're following us right now, one thing I want to do for you guys, I want to help you guys to get more clients. I want to help you get more paying clients. So what do I want you to do? Go to www.5waystoPayingClients.com. That's 5waystoPayingClients.com. That is my complimentary training for you to help you to get more clients into your business that actually want to pay you. So We get out of here on the Media Boss podcast differently than any other podcast, I think. Well, what I want to do is we're going to take a break. And you're saying, well, why should I come back? Because I have a gift for you just for coming back when you help support the Media Boss podcast. So stay right where you are and let me tell you how you can get a free gift just by helping out with us and staying right where you are. We'll be right back. Do you have a podcast? Would you like to have it heard by more and more people? Well, Pantheon is the way to go. Unlock the right mindset and tactics with our program. Create momentum with repurposed content. Get paid to build your business. And with Pantheon, we'll even show you how to have a team around you that gives you a community of encouragement. Check out Pantheon today.
You and me together, we could be anything.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Media Boss Podcast. I told you James Bishop was a fantastic guest. So guess what? For those of you who are interested in helping out with the Media Boss Podcast, of course, you can check us out on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Media Boss Podcast. You support us. We got some great love for you for doing that. But I also gave you guys a complimentary gift, and that is 5waystoPayingClients.com. That's www.5waystoPayingClients.com. That's the number 5. Now, for those of you who are really serious about growing your business through media, becoming what I call a media boss, well, what I want you to do is make sure that you attend my 5-day challenge. It's called the Make Money from Media Challenge. That's right, the Make Money from Media Challenge. We're going to go over podcasting, live streaming. We're going to go over books. We're going to go over magazines. We're going to go over live streaming and Roku television, documentary films. We're going to cover all of that. And social media as well in the Make Money from Media Challenge. How do you get there? Simple. Go to makemoneyfrommediachallenge.com. Isn't that really simple? Go to makemoneyfrommediachallenge.com and make sure you register. Those of you who come in as a VIP, I got a little extra something for you. So you get a chance to, if you're a VIP, you know if you're a VIP or not. You want to register as a VIP, come on in as one. Now, I want to make sure all of you guys are subscribing to the Media Boss Podcast. Make sure you're sharing it with your friends. And remember, I told you before I had something for you. Well, I do. If you go to Apple or Spotify and you leave us a great review, screenshot that. Then go to Media Boss Club, our Facebook group, Media Boss Club. Leave us a great review. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a $100 hotel savings that you can use at a hotel anywhere in the world. That's right, anywhere in the world. You can take this savings card and use it at hotels anywhere in the world and get a discount for your hotel stay. That's for those of you who like to travel. I like to travel. I would hope you do too. So go ahead and leave us a great review, screenshot it, put it in our Facebook group, Media Boss Club, and we will make sure that we get you your hotel savings. So with that being said, those of you who know, you know, we get out of here on the Media Boss Podcast one way and one way only. So ready? Here we go. Countdown from 3. 3, 2, 1. Media Boss out.